I'm live. Good morning. It is Monday, a bank holiday Monday, 6th of May 2024. I'm reading The Laird and the Lady. It is a fictional novel by Joan Marshall Grant, the only fiction she wrote, and it is a story about a Laird and a lady. She is an American millionaires, and she has been traveling incognito to escape from fortune hunters. Anyway, she ends up in a romantic French chateau after an accident. We are now here in chapter 4, Teamwork. Rowan watched the car rattle down the avenue of giant plane trees. He turned back to see Honorina picking herbs in a narrow garden adjoining the massive gatehouse. "To flavour soup for Madame," she said. "For lunch, she shall also have an omelette. Madame is sleeping now?" "Madame is sleeping and must not be disturbed. When she wakes, please tell her that I have gone for a walk and shall not be back until after lunch." Honorina looked surprised. Certainly the English were at times difficult to understand. Why go for a walk when natural anxiety should keep him at his wife's bedside? "Madame will be well looked after by me, you may rest assured," she said, with a thinly disguised reproof. "Madame needs a thorough spanking," thought Rowan, but it must wait, for there was just a chance that the ridiculous little doctor knew his job. He looked so depressed that Honorina relented. "There is a garage in the village," she said. "No doubt it may be necessary to arrange repairs to your car. The postman says it appears to be enormously damaged, but the luggage is safe. It has been brought up to the house. If Monsieur gives me the keys, I will unpack." Marylda's luggage. How could he explain why there were none of his things in the car? He pretended to search his pockets. "The keys must have lost themselves last night. I will look for them. I shall go to the village, to the garage." He set off briskly, before she had time to make any other awkward suggestions. Now, what should he do? Marylda's car could be towed to the garage, but how to prevent anyone knowing that there were two cars? If only he had thought of it sooner, they would have made up a story that they were driving the second car for a friend. Marylda's name would be on her car papers. Could he pretend they had married in France and forgotten to alter the documents? Or was it illegal to use your maiden name? After a smash, would they, being a faceless battery of bureaucrats, insist on examining passports? Anyway, he must try to keep the two cars separate. It would be mean taking Marylda to the local garage and getting his to a town in the opposite direction. It would mean taking Marylda's to the local garage and getting his own to a town in the opposite direction. A boy of about 14 sat on the damaged wall regarding the citron with interest. "The car has injured herself, he remarked politely. Evidently. Rowan was in no mood for idle pleasantries. "I should go to the garage," said the boy, as one stating a rare and unlikely truth. "You would no doubt like to push it there," said Rowan. "The car is too heavy. The lorry which picks up cars is broken. Mimi and Augusta are required." "Mimi and Augusta?" "The oxen of the chateau. I, Pierre, have informed them that they are to be docile." Rowan's view of his companion underwent a rapid change. Here was no idle spectator intent on making idiotic suggestions, but a potential ally, rich in local knowledge. "The garage is far. Many kilometers?" 3 kilometers, said Pierre, "unless the day is very hot, and then it appears further. It is also sometimes a greater distance in very cold weather." He looked up at the clear sky. "But today it will be 3 kilometers, exactly." 3 is agreeable to Mimi and Auguste. We may borrow them without permission." "But certainly," said Pierre. "My grandmother says that you are the guests of the chateau. My grandmother lives at the farm and does the laundry, unless her rheumatism is very bad. We will collect the oxen, said Rowan, now restored to good humour. Ropes will also be of use. A chain will be better, said Pierre. I have already borrowed one from the blacksmith. Only someone who has tried to attach a car to a pair of uncooperative oxen can fully understand the niceties of the problem. Fortunately, the steering was not entirely inert, or there would have been no fruitful outcome of the expedition. But it was past noon when they reached the village, and Rowan saw the harbour beacon of a rusty petrol pump. The garage was closed, and no one came when he banged on the locked doors. But, monsieur, it is after 12, said Pierre, for the first time displaying surprise at his company's behaviour. Naturally there will be no one here until 2 o'clock, adding hopefully, everyone is at déjeuner between 12 and 2. Rowan was not slow to take the hint. He too was hungry, and had acquired a thirst it would be ascetic to ignore. We will lunch together, he said. An expedition such as we are achieving requires proper attention to the welfare of its soldiers. Napoleon rightly insisted that an army marches on its stomach. Napoleon was a great man, agreed Pierre. He scrabbled the dust with a bare toe, searching for words which would be suitable to a comrade in arms and yet not appear acquisitive. We could drink beer at the Cheval Blanc, and they will sell us soup and bread. It is usual to bring something to eat with the bread, such as a piece of sausage. I was foolish not to ask my grandmother to provide us with something for our journey. Rowan took his cue. Undoubtedly, this is one of the occasions which demand celebration. There must be a restaurant in which we could pass the next 2 hours in pleasurable contemplation of one of the glories of France, which will soon return to us all. Monsieur mean that he would like to eat well and will not mind that it will be expensive? Said Pierre, excitement vying with a desire to appear disinterested. We must both eat well. Today we shall not concern ourselves with the amount of money which must pass to provide us with our requirements. Pierre turned a cartwheel and then blushed at his display of exuberance. There's a hotel, a large and famous hotel, outside the village, he said formally. Foreign motor cars go there with the very rich. He looked anxiously down at his faded blue dungarees. I do not look like the people who go there. They wear fur coats and rings. If Madame la Patronne of the Chateau was momentarily dismayed when a young man, wearing a jacket of Harris tweed and grey flannel trousers, which had a large tear in one knee, accompanied by a barefoot boy, rode into the courtyard of her hotel on oxen, she concealed it immediately. She recognized the English accent of her elder guest. It was obvious that he did not need to advertise his right to command the best service. Like the French aristo, the English milord could no longer afford a large motor car, such as was necessary to vulgarians. He had the air, and she had the wit to recognize it. One always attends first to the faithful steeds, said Rowan, and before entering the hotel they led Mimi and Augusta to the stable yard and saw them provided with an armful of hay and an apéritif of turnips. Madame la Patronne hurried to the kitchen. You will do the best the house can provide, she announced to the chef, for on this occasion she must think of him only as the chef, not as her nephew, who had displayed an aptitude for cooking. We have guests of the first quality, an English milord who is so rich that he can afford to ride an ox. He will undoubtedly possess a palace. The pâté, said the chef, which was too good to waste on the barbarians, will pollute the dining room. We have 4 trout, which Marcel caught only 2 hours ago, traite meunière, and their skins shall be a miracle of crispness. He looked at his aunt with sudden authority. You say it is an occasion? In the cupboard beside your bed is a bottle of Grand Marnier, no more than half empty. Give it to me, and I will create a souffle to the honor of France. I shall also require 7 eggs, no, 8. The artist must not be curtailed by circumstance. 8 eggs, is it understood? 8 eggs and the Grand Marnier, agreed his aunt, with a proper humility he rejoiced to hear. Madame replaced the faded marigolds on the window table with a vase of plumbago hastily gathered from the south wall of the garden. The occupants of the glossy delage who had paused here on their way to Paris from the Côte d'Azur nudged each other. Evidently people of importance had also decided to lunch at the inn they had so fortunately discovered. 2 professional cyclists ran a quick comb through their brillantine curls and adjusted their gold signet rings. Rowan and Pierre entered and were bowed to their table amidst curiosity which only native politeness could conceal. Madame has perhaps an old bottle, which would have a worthy companion to the meal, whose choice we leave entirely to her, said Rowan. If any more was required to give Pierre a hero of which he would dream it was this. But there was more to come. Rowan poured out the moulin à vin and waited for Pierre to pronounce upon it before he gave his verdict. Pierre would have sniffed his wine with greater confidence had he known that Rowan was in imagination also 14 years old, tasting for the first time pot-still whiskey in a crofter's cottage. His host on that occasion was a poacher, a hero who would catch a salmon in dead winter, who would shoot a capersalisi by moonlight to bury her in the earth until she lost the flavor of pine needles, and was ready to be cooked on a brush fire in the hide of a stone wall on the mountain that guarded Castle Cloud. So, this was chapter 4. Chapter 5 is entitled Facade. Have a good Monday.